Welcome back to my villain academia. Oh, boys and ghouls, boys and girls.
You know, I was expecting something a little bit different from the way you were bringing it up to me, but let's go with that.
I shall reign with points supreme.
Yes, it's my villain academia, the penultimate episode.
Well, it wraps things up. I'll say that. Before we get too deep into it,
Yes.
I want to address this because I did watch Team 4 Star's review of the previous episode. And remember how we were talking about why Re-Destro still had his fingers when those should have been, like, destroyed or something?
Yes.
Like, he should have been decaying? Yeah, that's what happens in the manga. He loses at least 2 fingers from the decay.
Oh!
And this is the way the anime censored it. So it's not his stress protecting him in any way. It is quite literally, it's a censorship thing.
I did read the episode, not the episode, the chapter where he kills his family, and yeah, it is.
That's also a censorship thing.
Yes, and I also found out that why everything was a bloody mess rather than fully disintegrating was because he was young, still learning how to control his quirk. So
He wasn't learning shit, it was just happening.
So from what I understood from the description, he only decayed part of them, and then once all the skin and muscles were gone, their blood wasn't decayed, so blood splattered everywhere.
Although, again, I haven't read the chapter, so I can't say, because at that point it sounds like they should just be a smear, not chunks.
And one thing from last week, Gigamantia can adjust his size.
That was mentioned in the review as well, that he could do that. That explains why he seemed to be so varying in size.
Yeah.
It's because he can change it.
Because as he was running through the city last week, I'm like, he was never that tall. Why is he as tall as buildings now?
I remember him being tall, but I thought he was maybe 1 or 2 story building tall, not multi-story at that point tall. Like when we first ran into him, he was pretty damn tall, and I was gonna say about a house to like a 2-story house at most.
Yeah.
But he was not skyscraper tall like he seems to be in the last episode. Also, yeah, it makes more sense at the end of this episode where they're all in like the underground lair that he's like suddenly shorter and can fit in there.
Hey guys, can you just bump the roof up like 40, 50 feet?
When you guys got a quirk that can soften the ground?
Do you have a quirk that can, shrink me down a bit? Thanks.
You got a quirk like Diver Down that can get me through here? So many JoJo stan.
I'm surprised there's no quirk that activates upon shouting his name.
Well, what is Dark Shadow?
But does he shout Dark?
Yes! He shouts Dark Shadow's name! I don't know if that's technically activating it, or if that's just being like, it's your turn to go up. It's like, it's your turn to do your thing.
Dark Shadow is a quirk.
Dark Shadow's a fucking stand.
Dark Shadow is both.
It's a stand that comes out of your stomach. Oh my fucking god. Oh. We should actually get back to this episode now that, unless there's anything else that needs to be cleared up from last time.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Yeah, so we get to see the rest of Shiguraki running into All for One, which I still don't feel like is just random happenstance. It does not feel that way.
Dr. Eggman was probably eyeing him from the shadows.
The way it's presented just feels too
Convenient.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Like all the pieces falling into place. It's fucking Nana Shimura's grandson. He has a quirk that's all about destruction. He's wandering the streets and randomly, all for one, runs into him or, discovers him. This feels way too convenient for me. I feel like there's shit going on in the background that led to this. Whether that was something that was, like via the doctor, or if this was something that, like, some information that he had gotten out of Nana before she had died. It's hard to say which one exactly that would be. Because for all we know, he has some kind of weird mind reading quirk and he just read her mind to figure out what he wanted to know.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh man, who's the next inheritor? Oh, did you have a family? Ooh, this is interesting.
Or maybe, and this is just like grasping at straws here, but maybe All for One has some kind of Professor Xavier quirk where he's like, okay, I need to find the most destructive quirks. Let me put on my Cerebro helmet. Oh, there's a boy that just reduced his family to a bloody mess. I'm going to investigate him.
Here's my other question that I just thought of. Is it possible that the doctor, like we mentioned, the doctor identifies quirks, etc., etc. Is it possible he identified Shigaraki's quirk early, didn't say anything about it, and perhaps even had some type of drug that would suppress it, so that after a certain amount of time, however long it would be went by, the quirk would explode? Like, to me, that would make a lot more sense with how he was able to just completely wipe out the house out of nowhere. Because it feels like his quirk just exploded.
Maybe.
Like, because we saw, for instance, Bakugo. We saw how Bakugo started out. He wasn't making big ass explosions. He had little baby firecrackers in his hand as a child. For Shigaraki to have that big of a showing, even for an emotional child of the time, it feels overblown.
It does. You know, that is a good theory. And maybe he also gave something to Deku because maybe Deku has a quirk that doctor was like, oh shit, this will screw us over as villains one day. I am going to super suppress it.
Possible, but I don't know. I don't know how that would work once he got One for All. I don't know if a quirk suppressor drug would still work at that point. And even then, I don't know that it would last that long without continued checkups.
Right. But I'm just saying that because earlier this season, we were talking about the doctor that checked out Deku back in episode 1 in all the flashbacks seems to be the same doctor that's
Yeah, yeah,
for all.
yeah. I know. I'm just thinking like timeline wise, and with the shit that Deku's getting with One for All, I don't know that a drug would be able to suppress that. Again and again, even with Shigaraki, it's like, here, I'll give him some pills and it'll last only for so long, right? Assuming that would be the route that the creator wanted to go. Horikoshi, that's his name. I was blanking on his name. Assuming that was the way Horikoshi would want to go. However, for that kind of a thing to actually pay off, it would have to have been like shown from the beginning, more or less. Um, in the case of Shigaraki, we're only just now getting his backstory. We've been with Deku for how long? Something like that would have probably popped up. That's not to say that he wouldn't have, had All for One come in and swipe whatever quirk Deku may or may not have had as a child at some point. But outside of that, I don't know. I don't see a drug option being in here the way it would be with the way it would make sense with Shigaraki.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are back in the fight with Re-Destro. Shit's gone sideways in that Shigaraki has like just kind of, how do I want to put this? He's thrown away any kind of like, let's just say any kind of physical attachment to the world, I guess, the way he's talking. Or at least the way that Re-Destro seems to like think of him afterwards. Like he no longer gives a shit about anything. All he really wants to do is destroy. That's the one urge he has.
And I did find it a little bit interesting that he took off all his shackles, which are the hands that have been holding him back.
It was a very nice idea, theming wise. Although they kind of in the flashback portrayed it more as like it's to help remind you and help hold on to the feelings that started you off. Or
Oh.
at least that's more or less the way, All for One phrased it.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, I guess two of those hands are actually from his first kill.
Yeah.
Well, first intentional kill, I guess, outside of his family.
So, okay, jumping like to the end of the episode, how did he get another hand? I thought he like deteriorated the one that was on his face.
He might have. They did say one managed to survive, so maybe it was another one, and maybe the hands are just pliable. I mean, they would have to be if he's sliding them onto his arms and stuff.
I would have to check the placement of the thumb to know if it's like left hand or right hand
Mhm.
before and after.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That'd be a neat touch, though, if they did flip whichever hand it was from a right to a left or vice versa. So yeah, Makia shows up during the whole like explosion and laughing at the fact that he's just destroying everything and having the time of his life. Um, Makia is just like, "Oh my god, he's the actual successor! Oh boy!" Um,
And Re-Destro goes stress 150 and gets a mech suit.
oh yeah, he gets a mech suit, goes 150, and I'm just sitting there like, this is a terrible matchup. Because the minute that Shigaraki even like grazes one of those things, it's gonna decay to nothing, and he's gonna lose his extra 50%.
Yeah.
Also, if you notice, we can go ahead and say that Re-Destro is kind of an allegory for Deku slash All Might. Because not only does he get bigger when he gets stronger, he's also got a percentage gauge. So a little bit of hinting at like, hey, look, here's a fight that looks kind of similar to the end fight that we're kind of gunning for in this series.
So are you saying the end fight will be Deku against Shigaraki and not Deku against All for One?
I'm just saying that it's making like an analogous like kind of, how do I want to put this? A they're kind of illustrating a simile of a fight. Whether or
Okay.
not it is the final fight, I kind of feel like that's what they're gunning for, like the next generation taking over and the final fight happening within that generation. What part All for One and hell even All Might at this point is actually going to play? Who knows? Remember, All Might still has that prophecy from Night Eye still hanging over him as to, him dying. Whenever that happens, if he hasn't actually defeated it, who knows?
Maybe
Is
in the final arc.
It could very well be. It could be whatever the thing is that pushes Deku over the edge. Um, Hell, it could literally be that All Might dies, Deku loses his shit, and has to be pulled back from the brink of becoming a villain himself, and like breaking the hero code and killing someone.
Interesting thought.
Also, keep in mind, if I'm nailing any of this shit, I have no idea. I've not read the manga at all.
Yeah, I haven't either. I just checked to see how the family death was censored. If it's
Hmm.
censored.
So yeah, Re-Destro gets blasted away, his armor flies off. Literally, apparently he has to cut off his legs at the ankles to keep from the decay like reaching through the whole of his body. They don't show it, but they kind of like Shigaraki mentions it and they kind of imply it with the way that his pant legs are just kind of blowing in the breeze.
And how is he not dying of blood loss?
Solid question. No idea. Maybe his stress has something to do with that. I don't know.
Maybe he made like some kind of stress barrier.
I have no idea.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you think he'll get robo legs or some kind of non-wheelchair movement down the line?
I don't know. It's a pretty sweet Professor X wheelchair.
Yeah.
I assume he'll get some kind of mecha legs, the way that Compress has his mecha arm.
Yeah. And
Um,
I did like how he is now, he was talking to Shiguraki and Shigaraki says like, get out of my sight. Yes, sir! And they just zipped away at full speed.
no, I love the fact that he's like so much not giving a shit that only the memory of like, hey, if we had teamed up with the Yakuza, we could have been eating sushi right now is literally the only reason he even spares the guy. Is just like, oh yeah, you're a big CEO guy, aren't you? You got a lot of money, right? And just cut to everyone eating sushi. And just twice crying over the dead Toga clone.
Hey, I'm still alive, you idiot.
I really like the eye patch on her. I don't know why. It looks really good.
And they said twice is just going back to his old habit of like disagreeing with himself just out of habit.
I don't know if that's out of habit, because I think it was Compress who said, like, I think forcing him to look at himself just made it worse.
Oh, okay, so that's how he phrased it.
Yeah, I think it was phrased something along those lines, where it's like, I think he just got worse.
Oh,
Yeah, because he just like goes on a rant with himself for a minute there. Um,
which is hilarious.
I kind of like how Shigaraki just like gets announced as the guy taking over the Liberation Army, which fuck, I forget its new name.
The Paranormal Liberation Front.
That's it. I love how he has a goddamn Iskandar cloak on. I'm like so tempted to just be like, "Where's the crown? Fucking give him the crown already!"
Yeah?
Like, seriously, he's got the freaking like fur trimmed cloak. Just give him the crown at this point. Also, if you noticed, his hair went from like that like somewhat blue to all full white now.
Really? I did not notice that.
And the doctor at the end is all like, "Yep, you proved yourself. That means I'm gonna help you," which is gonna lead into Shigaraki having that electrical umbilical cord jabbed into his stomach.
So, are we to assume that the League of Villains was only down to 9 members?
What were the nine?
Um, okay, maybe not 9, but it was Shigaraki twice, Compress,
Dabi,
uh,
Toga, that's five.
but were they the
Enter is six.
but were they the only members of the League of Villains left?
I wanna say yes, cause teleport guy was captured. Portal dude.
So the League of Villains,
Kurogiri.
yeah, the League of Villains really wasn't that large of a group.
No, there was the other. I forget his name, but there was the other dude that was murdered by the Yakuza when they first showed up.
Huh. But wait,
There weren't many of them.
All for One is so powerful, yet his team so to speak, was so small, I would have expected him to have a larger group under his control.
I mean, Shigaraki, what's his name? All for One kind of just let Shigaraki do whatever he needed to do. He kind of just was like, "All right, time for you to go and stand on your own two legs," and just kicked him out the door. Or at least that's kind of the way I'm taking it, because
So,
he really didn't have any hand in anything unless Shigaraki asked him specifically for help, which was mainly just the Nomu.
so All for One may have other villain groups under his control that we don't know about.
I don't even know if All for One technically has any control over Shigaraki at this point, outside of just the mental brainwashing.
Huh.
Like, All for One raised him, taught him all the shit, and now he's like, go do it yourself.
Hmm. Go start your own villain group.
Pretty much. Like that's the way it seemed I can take this at this point. Is just, yeah. Time for you to grow up, be a man, go do your thing.
Okay, that makes more sense now.
And now with him behind bars, Shigaraki's trying to take the helm, is what it seems like to me.
Huh. So now Shigaraki is in charge of a group roughly 1,000 times, if not more, his original group.
100,000? Because they said they had like what? They said like the number was 400,000, I think, right?
Yeah.
In the book. Yeah, try 400,000. Try almost 100,000 times more.
Wow. Well, like maybe more like 80 because he had like 4 or 5 people under him.
Yeah, yeah. Either way, you get the idea.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't really give us much in the preview to go on.
No, but it seems like we've seen the hero side of things again.
Yeah, it seems like they're obviously going to be setting up for the next season.
Mhm.
As for what that actually is or means, and if there's like a mini time skip between the two episodes, who knows?
And I saw the title card went back to My Hero Academia.
Hmm.
So yeah, I really love this arc.
I still think it's one of the weakest ones. I like the stuff in there, but because of the way they cut it up, the pacing feels off.
Would you have preferred the Endeavor arc to be second?
I think I would have preferred them to bounce back and forth.
Oh.
Like one episode we're keeping up with the heroes and their thing, and then in the next one we're keeping up with the villains and their thing, right? Obviously the first half would still be them doing A versus B.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, in the second half I would have been like, all right, hero, villain, and just side by side, one step, then the other step.
I would agree with you only if the villain didn't take place 2 months early, 2 weeks earlier.
Did it? Because I thought it was more or less happening at the same time. I'd have to go back and check.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure now that you mention it.
Because yeah, they jumped around and it throws me off as to like when exactly things are happening.
Yeah.
Um, if it's not the same, then outside of like just the fact that they don't want to end on like the boring note that Endeavor has, why would it make a difference? Um, here would be the other interesting bit. No, you're right. It would have had to happen earlier now that I'm thinking about it, because the Hawks stuff throws a wrench into everything as
Mhm.
well. Yeah, I would have done it the same. I would have left it off on a more somber note with the Endeavor ending. Yes, you wouldn't have had a big explosion like this fight at the end, but still, I feel like it would have just made more sense and the pacing would have been better had you done it the way it was originally intended.
And we're still going to end off on a little bit of a lesser note with the final episode of the season.
Well, I was gonna say the other option would have been make it look like these things are happening more or less side by side, right? But anytime Hawks would meet with someone, you never show who they are.
Oh,
And then you leave that reveal as to who he's actually talking to be like right there at the end.
clever.
That way, even if it isn't supposed to be happening at the same time, you won't realize it until the end that like, oh shit, this stuff has all been happening all like after this.
That would have been good. So, as we said, next week is the final episode of this season.
Mm-hmm.
Come back and join us then. Anything else you wanted to say before we head out?
Yabba dabba glib glab.
Go.
Is it time for the last stand in our next episode?
The last stand.
Like,